Good afternoon, everyone. It's about 1:01 p.m. Pacific time, and that means it's time for another Western Liberty Network Saturday Zoom session. And today we're going to be talking about how to conduct good Zoom meetings. Love it or hate it, we are stuck with Zoom probably forever. It's been a great tool to hold meetings during the pandemic, but it is useful enough that once we no longer have COVID-19 in front of us, that a lot of folks are still going to use it to do meetings. So it's a good skill to have, a good skill for grassroots activists to have in their toolbox to help organize themselves, share ideas, and so forth. Before I begin the training today, I'm going to share my screen and let's see, bring up the Western Liberty Network website. And you'll see it on screen right now. What you see is the home page. If you go to westernlibertynetwork.org, it will redirect you to this site, and you will see the home page of Western Liberty Network. And here you see a promotion for the session that we're conducting today. What you'll see up here within the next week or two is information related to our February 5th conference. Western Liberty Network hosts a conference every year. It's our national conference, because we operate in multiple states, and we have 20 breakout sessions, and we have national caliber speakers, and you'll be able to register for it on this website shortly, but bear in mind until then that it will be on February 5, 2022, with a free reception to be held the night before. If you would like to look at Western Liberty Network's training materials, you can go to the training tab on our website and scroll down, and you'll see a variety of documents that you can download. These are instructional documents. They're designed to be provided with a live training, but they stand up on their own. So if you see a topic here that you're interested in, just click on it and you'll be able to download a PDF file with that document. If you're interested in the live video training sessions that we do every Saturday, including this one, scroll down a little further and you'll see a variety of them, almost a year's worth of trainings on different topics. And find a topic that is interesting to you and simply click on it, and it will take you to the video and you'll be able to watch it. Also on the website, on the home page, if you scroll down to where we have previous conferences, you'll see information about previous conferences and even some speakers. If you click on this one, you'll see Andrei Ilyaronov's speech to the 2020 annual meeting. And there's more if you scroll down even further. Kat Timpf, Lars Larson, Noah Wall of FreedomWorks. So there are a lot of resources on the Western Liberty Network webpage that are available free of charge if you want to learn things. And if you see value in what you find and want to support Western Liberty Network, you can make a tax-deductible contribution by going to our Support WLN tab off the westernlibertynetwork.org webpage. And from here, you can make a secure tax-deductible gift to Western Liberty Network. You can do a one-time contribution, or you can do a monthly contribution. And of course, we encourage the monthly contribution because that gives us predictable, budgetable revenue, but the one-time contributions are very helpful as well. One last thing before we go into the training today, I need to point out that Western Liberty Network is a 501c3 organization. And as such, we do not endorse or oppose any candidate for public office, even the ones we train. We do not endorse or support or oppose any political party, ballot measure, or legislation. Comments made by people on these recordings are completely their own and do not necessarily represent the view of Western Liberty Network. And with that, we will start into our training today. I'm going to share screen once again and talk about Zoom. If you're on this call, you probably know about Zoom and you've probably used Zoom. If you're watching the recording, the same also applies. So you know what Zoom is about. It's a video conferencing system where you can share files, you can exchange information via text, and you can see and hear each other just like you're watching me right now. There are a variety of plans that you can pay for. And if you do a lot of Zooming, I'm going to encourage you to get a paid plan. You can use Zoom for free, but you are limited to meetings of 40 minutes. And you have unlimited one-to-one meetings with a 30-hour time limit per meeting. But if you have multiple people coming into a group, you're limited to 40 minutes. And that's fine. We used to use that at Western Liberty Network, but we just kept bumping up on that 40-minute limit. And it just cuts you off. It doesn't even give you a warning. So I encourage people to sign up if they do a lot of Zoom meetings, to sign up for this. It's $14.99 a month. You can also pay a year in advance, so you get a little bit of a discount for that. That's what Western Liberty Network did. But you can have up to 100 participants, and meetings can go on for 30 hours. Essentially, you don't have a time limit on the meeting, and that loosens things up quite a bit. So there are other things you can tack on if you want to, but for most grassroots functions, this is good. And even if you've got short meetings, you know, the free system works very well. But one of the things that I do is encourage people, that's tip number one, get a paid Zoom account to remove the 40-minute time limit. Also, it's important that you communicate with likely meeting attendees in advance. Don't try to surprise them with very little notice, and don't just tell them that there's going to be a meeting without giving them some context. Western Liberty Network puts out 2 emails a week to let people know what we're doing in the upcoming Zoom conference. And I advise that folks do something like that, particularly if they have a regular Zoom function. In the email, make sure people know that they have to have Zoom installed on their computer, and provide links to do that. You can get examples of that with the emails that Western Liberty Network sends out. If you go to the bottom of the notices we have for Zoom sessions, we show people where they can get the Zoom software if they don't already have it installed in their system, and make sure that they're able to do that. So let people know when the meeting will be, what the time, the place is, and give them the meeting ID number. What we do at Western Liberty Network is we have a red button on our web page. I'll bring you right back to that. Let's see. I'll bring you right back to that. Okay, here we are. You'll notice that we've got a sign on with Zoom button. But, you know, for some computers that use HTML differently, that don't like the red button, you can take the meeting ID 358-890-0475, and that usually is enough to get in. Sometimes you can provide a passcode if you have a Zoom account, and this will allow people to get into the meeting. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but what you can do is you can build that into a button. In this case, if you have Zoom installed on your computer, all you have to do is go to the Western Liberty Network website and click on this button, and that'll take you in without you having to type in all these numbers and letters. But my point here is, when you provide a notice of your meeting, make sure you provide all of that information. You can use Western Liberty Network's website as a template to do the same thing, or the email that I've provided. And then if you have a written agenda, include that. Attach it to your email as a PDF file. Don't attach it as a Word file. One problem with things like Word is that some people have Word for Macintosh, some people have Word for PC. There are different versions of Word going all the way back to version 1, and they don't all render correctly. But if you can make a PDF file and attach that to your email, it's going to look the same to whoever opens it, and they're going to be able to get the same information. So a planned agenda, if you can attach it to the notice of the Zoom meeting, that'll give people an idea of what to expect. The next the next tip is use a good camera. We've got a high resolution camera that I use here. It's a Logitech camera. I really like it. There are professional cameras out there, but you know, for most purposes, a good webcam is sufficient. And make sure you've got good facial lighting and background lighting. Mine's not ideal. Mine's fluorescent, so I've got a little forehead shine, and it's not ideal. It's sufficient. I am going to at some point upgrade this. I'm going to get a green screen in the back, and I'll get a special zoom light, you know, so that these things look a little more polished. but it's good to have an important camera. Now, one exception to that is if you've got connectivity issues. If you're in a rural location or in a place where you've got marginal internet speed, you might want to use a lower resolution camera because that takes less bandwidth and you'll be less likely to have interruptions or stuttering or buffering or anything like that. And also, if you really have really bad connectivity, you can turn off the video as I'm doing right now. And if you have marginal internet bandwidth, this will improve your sound quality because the video information and the sound information have to share the same connection. And the audio is typically more important than the video unless you're doing a lot of on-screen activity. And so if that's the case, you can disable the video and improve the audio quality of your calls. And speaking of audio quality, make sure you use a good microphone. Their webcam microphones and headsets are fine. I'm using the microphone on my webcam, but there are desk microphones designed for use in Zoom sessions that provide a lot of high fidelity. They're really good microphones, and they're not very expensive. I don't recommend it unless you do a lot of Zoom sessions or are going to do a lot of Zoom sessions. But if you are, it's worth the investment. You can just go to Google or the search engine of your choice and put down microphones for Zoom, and you'll get all kinds of options as to what you can do. Look at reviews and see what works well, and before you pick one. Another tip is when you're hosting, make sure you look into the camera. I make this mistake a lot of times myself. I have a camera located on top of my computer screen. And so as you can see right now, I'm looking right at the camera. So it gives the impression of eye contact. A mistake a lot of people make, and I sometimes make myself, is I look at the screen. I look at the Zoom screen at the faces of the people who are on the screen. And as you can see right now, I'm not looking at you eye to eye. I'm looking at the screen and I look distracted. But if I look up at the camera lens, then it's much more direct. So I'm going to try to work on that as a way to improve the quality of my Zoom calls, but that's a nice little tip for folks. Another meeting tip, try to control house noise. If you're hosting a meeting, make sure that the dogs are in the other room and make sure that the kids have something to do for a while. I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings where there have been a lot of interruptions and a lot of background noises that could have been avoided with a little bit of planning. If you have your cell phone with you, make sure the ringer is off, all of those things. Try to minimize any of the distractions that you might have that produce background noise. Meeting tip number 6, try to be presentable. I have a collared shirt and I'm not dressed formally, but I want to look presentable so that I'm credible as a leader of a particular Zoom session. Do whatever you feel comfortable with, but I generally try to encourage at least a shirt that's business casual. I mean, for all you know, I may have swim trunks on. That's fine, or pajama bottoms or something like that. But you know, I try to wear a shirt at least that looks business casual, and I encourage people to do that as well. Another tip is smile to people. Don't have a sourpuss when you're on camera too much. People are much more engaged if you're smiling at them and if it looks like you're having a good time and it looks like you're enjoying having the Zoom session. Zoom's meeting tip number 8. I'm going to have to look at my sheet a little bit here, so I'm going to break eye contact. I'm sorry about that. But prepare your content. It's very important that you know what the objective of your Zoom meeting is. And create an agenda if you have multiple topics. I mean, in this particular call, we only have one topic, really. We have one topic. We're training about how to do better Zoom calls. And there, I just broke my own rule about silencing the cell phone. So you can understand, it's a demonstration of how it can be distracting. So I'm going to take care of that right now. Okay, so that's silenced. So if you have multiple topics, come up with a printed agenda, make a PDF file out of it, as I mentioned before, when you send out your email. But on your agenda, have allotted time periods. Like if your call starts at 10 in the morning, say topic 1, 10 o'clock to 10:15. Topic 2, 10:15 to 10:30. That way people know when you're going to start, when you're going to finish. It helps the meeting move. It keeps the meeting from slogging along. And you want to keep meetings as short as possible. You want the meetings to be as long as necessary to conduct your business, but you don't want to drag them out. Having time limits is really helpful. If you run against the time limit, you say, oh, we need to move on to the next topic. If people really want to continue, get a consensus of the group and find out how much longer you want to talk about. Another 10 minutes, fine, but attach an additional time limit to it so you keep it moving. And again, if your meeting goes longer than an hour and a half, you're going to lose people. Sometimes you'll lose people if meeting only goes an hour. So keep them as short as possible. Meeting tip number 9, use mute. Mute is very important. If everyone's microphones are active in a call with lots of callers, you're going to get feedback, you're going to get echoes, you're going to get all kinds of background noises and all of these sorts of things. If you are the call lead and you're hosting the Zoom call, you will have the option of muting everybody's microphones. So I encourage that you mute everyone's microphone except for yourself and whoever the guest is. However, let people, maintain the ability of participants to unmute themselves and encourage them to unmute themselves if they want to speak. If they want to speak, ask them to unmute themselves, but remute themselves when they're finished speaking. And if they are finished speaking and they forget to remute themselves, go ahead and mute them. Having a minimum of active microphones on a call, especially with multiple people on the call, if you have too many people and too many active mics, it's going to really destroy your sound quality. It could affect the video quality because it's carrying all those signals from all these sources, and you don't want to have that happen. Meeting tip number 10, engage your audience. Encourage people to ask questions by raising their virtual hand. There's a thing, and you probably see it on your Zoom screen, where you can raise your hand and be called upon. And then your hand can be lowered by either the host or yourself. It's a way to be called on, or even unmuting themselves and interjecting. With the calls that I do, I have no problem with people not raising their hand, but just unmuting the microphone and interrupting to have a interactive meeting. But there are a lot of ways people can send out chats. They can ask questions via chat. They can interrupt. They can raise their hand. But the point is, make sure that you have an interactive meeting. If meetings are interactive and you've got some back and forth going on, it's going to be more engaging, and you're going to be able to hang on to more callers, because the meeting will frankly be more interesting than if it is just a lecture, without the chance to interject. And if you are in a situation where there are not very many questions, like in this session today, we have one live participant, Glenn, and relatively few questions. So if you're going to have a monologue like the one I'm giving you now, try your best to keep it short so that people don't get bored and disconnect. Technology troubles. It's important that if you're holding a Zoom call, that you open your Zoom meeting space 10 to 15 minutes before the session. What I do is I go into the meeting and I start the meeting 10 to 15 minutes early. I make sure that the recording is off, so it's not being recorded. And I just take care of what I need to do. Make sure my sound levels are good, make sure my video is working. And if you have a guest that's going to be a special speaker, make sure that they log on 5 to 10 minutes early so they can adjust their video, their audio, and make sure everything is working. So, one thing you don't want to do is start your meeting exactly on time and then have some audio problems and then try to work those out. I had that happen once myself, and it's embarrassing and it doesn't look professional. So start your meeting early. One tip that's not on this sheet, but I wanted to share, is that if you have a portable laptop computer that you're using to do a Zoom session and you're traveling and you're out in the field, one really neat trick, if you're in a place where you don't have a Wi-Fi spot or anything like that, is to use your cell phone. Contact your cell phone provider and ask them if your phone can be used as a mobile hotspot. If you have the ability to be a mobile hotspot, then it'll share your 4G or 5G connection, and you will basically have a Wi-Fi router as your phone. Your phone will be a Wi-Fi router, and you'll be able to use your laptop to log into the Wi-Fi section and conduct a Zoom meeting literally out in the field. I did a couple of Zoom meetings outside. I did one from my car when I was in Bend by using my cell phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot, and then using my computer to log into the Wi-Fi hotspot, and then conducting my Zoom meeting using my computer. So that's a neat little trick. And depending on who your carrier is, contact your carrier, find out if you can do a hotspot using your phone, have them show you how to do it. It's really fairly simple once you get it working, and it really increases your ability to do spots from the field. I did one Zoom session from the gathering of the Eagles meeting out in Turner, and I literally had the phone in my pocket using the Wi-Fi hotspot, and I was carrying around my laptop doing interviews with people as I was walking around. It was slick. Another one I did from my car when there was a meeting when I was in Bend. Another one I did out in Cascade Locks when I had a display table up for a political convention. It's just a really neat little trick that you could use to do Zoom broadcasts in the field. Or if you're attending a meeting out in the field, if you're in a car and you're in the passenger seat, you can use the Wi-Fi hotspot technique and a laptop computer to log on to meetings other people are holding using the Wi-Fi hotspot. So it's really neat. The last tip I'm going to share with you today is always start and finish on time. It's tempting to say, okay, it's 1 o'clock, it's time to start the meeting, but there's only 1 or 2 people on. Let's give them 5 or 10 minutes to log on. I don't like doing that because, one, it shows disrespect for the people who are on time. It's very important that their time be valued. They took the trouble to be on time, so it's important to reward them for that. If you start waiting 5 or 10 minutes and it becomes a habit, people say, oh, I'm a little bit late, but that's all right. You know, they don't start until 5 or 10 minutes late anyway. I don't like to have that reputation. I like to have a reputation of being on time. I like to reward the people who are on time by starting on time. And as word spreads of your Zoom calls, people will know that you're on time and that they better make the arrangements they need to make to avoid missing the call. Sometimes you can't do that if you have a special guest that you're waiting for. Like sometimes I have state legislators or other people on to provide instruction. If they tend to be late, well, you just got to wait for them. But when you can, do your best to start on time. And finally, always thank your participants for their participation. They're taking time out of their day to attend your Zoom call. If they're doing grassroots political work, they're almost certainly doing it as volunteers. And they're giving up part of their day, typically on a weekend, to be with you and to get some value from your Zoom call. They will appreciate it if you have a short, efficient Zoom call, if you have multiple topics, have a planned agenda, you stick to the agenda and the timeline, you keep things going, you have an interactive call, you work out technological glitches in advance, you have a decent camera, a decent microphone, so you can hold a decent meeting and respect their time and thank them for their time. And so I'm going to thank you, Glenn, for your time being on the call today. And for the people who are watching this recording, I want to thank you for your time in watching this recording as well. And I hope that this results in more people being able to run good Zoom meetings. It's a great tool for grassroots organization, and we need more of that in this country. So Glenn, before we call it a session, are there any questions or comments you'd like to make?
Your website, the Zoom button there, worked straight through this time. I've excuse me, I've stumbled around in previous sessions and had to go out and launch Zoom myself and then key in the session and password. I haven't changed anything at this end. Do you think of anything why it's
I don't know why. That's an interesting point. The link here, I've had it for I'll put it up on the share screen again. I've had this link here probably for about 6 or 7 months, and I haven't changed anything on it. However, it's important to note that, if you have a Windows system or a Macintosh system or a Linux system like I have, or even oddball operating systems like OS2 or something like that, they have different browsers with different capabilities. And a lot of times from time to time, they automatically upload updates, which provide additional functionality. So it's possible that either an update of your browser or even my browser may be responsible for the change in behavior. And when you're dealing with multiple platforms, sometimes things can go amiss. And that is, again, another good reason why it's important to open your meeting space 10 to 15 minutes early. So if people have problems like you have had, or other people have different problems, that they're able to have time to resolve them and have everything working by the time the actual training session or meeting starts. Does that help, Glenn?
Yeah, I can't think of anything I've changed at this end,
Mhm.
and I was just curious. It could simply be the bandwidth. I have DSL, and with two participants, maybe that's a difference. I don't know.
It's possible. My guess is that your operating system has been updated, even if you haven't done anything. Some operating systems will apply updates automatically in the background. And the next time you start the browser, the updated browser is what runs. So my guess is that an update on either your system or my system or both are responsible for the change in behavior. And hopefully you won't have that problem anymore.
I've got all my updates for the browser and the OS shut off for automatic because I want to know what broke it.
Sure.
So I launch them at some point and then keep track of, so I can do a rollback if I have to. And,
Right. That's smart. And so it may be my system. It may not be yours. It might be mine.
Well, if I go through my browser to Zoom and key in the session, it's worked every time. It
Sure.
was through your red button.
Right.
But again, it worked just fine today.
Well, good. I'm glad it did. Hopefully it will in the future. If you have problems in the future, please send me an email letting me know, because if it is a persistent problem, it's something that I definitely want to get fixed. So please let me know if you have these problems in the future.
I've always thought it's at my end.
Mm-hmm. I don't think so, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Glenn?
No, that's, I'm going to play around with the settings more
Okay.
in the off session.
Yeah, have fun with it. When you're not on the Zoom call and you bring up the Zoom application, you can adjust a variety of settings and it gives you some parameters. There's a lot of things that can enhance the quality of the video image being sent. You can have different backgrounds if you want to. If you have a green screen or something like that, you can do a lot with the audio. There are a lot of parameters that you can set. So have fun with it. You're not going to break anything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, we will call it a session. Everyone have a good week. God bless. And we will see you next Saturday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Take care.